Hello and welcome to the lecture of John Dryden. So let's study about John Dryden. So John Dryden was an English poet, literary critic, translator and playwright who in 1668 was appointed England's first poet laureate. So please remember, John Dryden has been appointed as England's first poet laureate in 1660. He is seen as dominating the literary life of Restoration England to such a point that the period came to be known in literary circles as the Age of Dryden, that he was a so prominent writer, so famous among the fellow writers, that the age itself is named as the Age of Dryden because he has written some remarkable works that are of great, kind of a genre and of a great prestige, that the whole age is named after him. Alright, so he is thought to be the most representative poet of the Restoration Age. Okay, so Restoration Age, the time period is 1600 to 1700. Okay, this was the time of Restoration Age, and that's why in 1668 he was appointed the poet laureate because he was a so remarkable poet of his age. Alright, so basically Restoration Age was an age which marks the end of the Puritan regime in England. Okay, so in the Puritan time, theaters were banned. The people were not allowed to play on theaters, and the theatres were banned during the Puritan time. So when the restoration of Charles II was done to the English throne in 1660, so Restoration Age began, which actually marked the opening of theatre. So the writers of that Restoration period were writing anything to make their ends meet, and that's why theatre was very much famous in Dryden's time. And Dryden has written a lot of dramas to actually portray or to just present on the stage. Dryden's an essay dramatic poesy is a significant piece of the critical work to understand the essence and parameter of neoclassical age. So it is generally assumed that John Dryden was neoclassical in his outlook, though he was not rigid as the French and the French dramatists, but he basically is considered to be a neoclassical writer. So his essay and essay on dramatic poesy is a very significant piece of critical work which actually understand the essence of the neoclassical age. So whatever the features of neoclassical age were there, it was very much portrayed and presented in Dryden's work. Let's study about his essay on dramatic poesy. Alright, so now let's study about what is the essay on dramatic poesy all about. Now the treatise is written to form a dialogue between Critic, Eugenus, Lycidius and Neander. So these were the four characters which have been presented in this essay, and Dryden has presented his criticism in the form of conversation between these four characters. Now this essay makes Dr. Samuel Johnson term the treatise as our first and regular and valuable treatise on the art of writing. Okay, so it was Samuel Johnson who actually praised this work and said that it is the first regular and valuable treatise on the art of writing. Now this treatise, as I told you, is written in the form of dialogue. And who were these four characters? These four characters are Critic, Eugenus, Lycidius and Neander. And these are the four friends basically who undertook a journey by boat in the river Thames. So what was the name of the river? So in England, this river is very famous. Like India, we have a very famous river Ganga. Okay, similarly in England, Thames is like Ganga of England. All right, so this basically the English writers has written most of the poems focusing or just alluding to this river Thames. Now when they were just going on a journey on a boat on the river Thames, where they took turn to express their divergent views on different aspects of literature. So they were a group of friends who were having a conversation, and they thought, let's give one by one the views of different aspects of literature. That it was like, it might reminds you of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Okay, so in Canterbury Tales, the pilgrims were going to the shrine of Thomas Becket, and there also, in order to pass the night or in order to reduce the monotony of the night, they decided to tell tales. Similarly, here also four friends were traveling, and they, while going on a journey, thought to actually express the different aspects of literature, so that the reader get different perspective of looking at literature and poetic creativity. So they wanted basically to help the reader to not only go by one view. A reader should have a lot of views in front of him, or even if he is not able to look from that point of view, through the discussion he can basically look into that matter, and they can evaluate themselves what is better for them. Okay, so like if you have a lot of choices, so you can choose which of the four choice fits to your desires and expectations. So similar, they also wanted the reader to have that kind of choice. Now these characters are named, as you know, Crites, Eugenius, Lycidius and Neander. Now these characters are not the true character, they are fictional character in the name of the two characters. Okay, so basically Crites, Eugenius, Lycidius and Neander. So who were Crites? Crites was Sir Robert Howard, alright, and he argued about the superiority of ancient. Okay, he talks about the superiority of ancient. Eugenius was Dorset, alright, and he's celebrating the moderns. Lycidius is Charles Sedley, he supports the French and neoclassical theatre, and Neander is Dryden himself. Please remember, very important point, this can be asked in the question, that who was Neander? So Neander was Dryden himself, and he is defending the English theatre and the Elizabethans. So this character's names are very important. Please remember which character is what with what name and what they are supporting for. Alright, so let's study them one by one. Now first character is Crites. So this essay on dramatic poesy is form of a dialogue between four characters, Crites, Eugenius, Lycidius and Neander, and the first essay begins with the character Crites. So Crites is basically Sir Robert Howard, and he is arguing about the superiority of the ancient. Alright, so the Crites in this particular essay begins by asserting the superiority of the ancient poets of the classical antiquity. Okay, so basically he is talking about the ancient and that too classical poets. So he says that classical poets have a better profundity, has better thoughts or expressions, and he basically asserted the superiority of these poets. For him, the classical poets and dramatists have shown their mastery in just representation of human nature. So the kind of human nature which was presented in the classical writers was basically relatable, and it is more close to the realism. For him, classical poets and dramatists have shows their mastery in just representation of human nature. Okay, so the ancient Greek dramatists were the earlier dramatists who can be said to be the founders of dramatic genre in Europe. So when I was teaching you the classical literature, I told you that basically the classical drama started from the city Athens, where performing the classical dramas were a sort of festival for them. Okay, so he basically asserted the same point, that the drama form or the drama genre has been originated from the Greek dramatists. Okay, and been originated from the ancient cities. So that's why the ancients are very superior, or are all the more superior to all the other dramatists which basically followed the ancient drama. Now it was in Greece that drama tragedy rose to level of maturity. Now moderns, according to Crites, had built their foundation on the ancient masters. So I told you in Augustan age also, when the literature become totally vulgar, totally not acceptable, so they thought to let's go back to the ancient drama or the classical literature, or just start imitating the classical writers to improve our drama. So that's what the point Crites is actually putting again and again in this particular segment, that moderns have already followed the classical writers and ancient writers. So the one who is following the other, so the one who is being followed is always the superior, have a superior identity. Now all good modern plays are fashioned according to the Aristotelian norms. So whatever Aristotle has given the kind of rules and regulations for a drama, and all these classical Aristotle was also a classical writers, and that norms and that rules and regulation were followed by these modern writers as well. Now for him, the play are not good if they do not follow the ancient rules of writing. Moreover, in the use of language, basically he's talk about language, style, figures of speech and other devices, also the ancients are superb. So in together he's basically arguing for the superiority of the ancients, that the ancients are better writers, better dramatists. Why? Because the thing of drama or the idea of drama has been originated in the ancient city, where drama was taken to be a festival. Okay, and here the drama began and rose to maturity, and these modern writers followed the not the classical writers not only for the great thoughts but also great expressions and great emotion. They also followed the style which Aristotle prescribed for writing drama, and all the literary devices, language, style, figure of speech and other literary devices are all the product of ancients. So if the moderns are following the ancient for everything, so obviously ancients are superior to all the dramatists. So that's what Critic has argued in this particular essay, about the superiority of the ancient. I hope the Critic's portion is clear. Let's move ahead. Now, next character is Eugenius. Okay, so Eugenius is basically named as Dorset, and he is celebrating the moderns. So while he was listening about the tirades against the modern, and who was actually criticizing moderns, it was Critic, who was actually supporting the ancient drama. So when he was listening to the tirades against the moderns, so Eugenius tried to defend the modern dramatist. Okay, in a reaction to the tirades or the kind of charges levied on the moderns, Eugenius tries to defend the modern dramatist. Now he says that he has deep respect for the ancients, but that does not take away the credibility of the modern writers. So ancients can be good. Ancients can be good writers, can be good expressionists, could be good, construction of the idea, but he cannot forget the credibility of the modern writers as well. Now the moderns have profited from the ancients as any artist built on the achievement of his predecessors. Okay, but according to Eugenius, the modern poets have excelled further than the poets of antiquity. So he basically believed that whenever it's like something like all the classical writers used to believe the same thing, that everything on the earth is in form of imitation, nothing is real, nothing is new, because anything you are actually deriving inspiration from, so already things that have been made. Like whenever you go for a research project also, like when you just plan to do PhD, so always you cannot come up with the extremely new idea that today I'm going to do something which has not been researched upon. So even if you are researching upon something that has already been researched before by some or the other researcher, not completely, but maybe the some portion of it. All right, so whatever research you are doing, that is also a kind of imitation. But how better you can reform that writing, how better you can increase the scope of that research, or you can just bring new viewpoint, that is up to you. Okay, so that is what Eugenius also said, that moderns no doubt have copied the ancients, and everybody copies some other person. And I cannot deny the Eugenius, according to Eugenius, he cannot deny the achievements of the predecessors, that is ancient. But according to Eugenius, modern do have copied the things from the ancients, but they have further excelled and reformed that kind of art that the poets used to have of antiquity. Antiquity is basically the ancient time, or you can say the ancient writers. Now the moderns have been improved upon the rule and practices of the ancient. They just copied them, and they have improved their writing, they have reformed their expression. And Eugenius is critical of the ancient for not following the dramatical unities strictly. And what were these dramatic unity? Unity of place, okay, unity of place, unity of time, and unity of action. So these three unities were basically derided, or going to ignored, okay, by these ancient writers, and Eugenius made this point. Okay, so they were actually like lawyers for some or the other person, so they are just defending their stand by giving some evidences, and this was the evidence given by Eugenius, that ancients have actually not followed the dramatic unity strictly, for the use of stock characters, for excess of speech at the cost of action, for lacking in poetic justice. And what was this poetic justice? I have already told you what is poetic justice. Poetic justice is a kind of a thing that was followed in drama, where the good